look at this. We haven't done this in so long. It looks different now, doesn't it?
It does. I'm trying to figure
Oh,
out
look. Only your followers will be able to leave comments.
if I click that.
Then that means all the spammers won't be able to say anything.
Unless they
But
decide
neither
to
will
follow.
new people.
That's true. That's true.
So we don't know what to do. Let's wait on that.
Okay.
Can you find this again?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're live right now.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Okay.
But there's always a few minutes. People kind of wander
Yeah,
in,
that's
so
true.
we might as well learn while we wait.
Learn while we wait. Oh, here's the comments. I was looking for this here. So we've got Shelly.
Oh, look, you can ban people right here. This is so much easier than from the cell phone.
It's been a minute since we've done this, isn't
It is. Shelby, we're back on our computer, and it's like all the bells and whistles are new. We have been on our cell phones for so long. It's just going back to our roots. Going back to the roots.
We got T here with us.
Hey T, how you doing? If you're here live with us and you want to say hi, please do so. That's how we know you're here, and it kind of lends your energy into the blend we got going. And also, if you're watching it later and it's not a live stream, that's okay too. Still write your comments when you feel drawn to, because we all try to kind of go back and read them all, and might not always comment or thumbs up or anything, but we do try to keep an eye on the, what's being said out there. And
Yeah.
so it does not fall on deaf ears.
Susan with us too.
Hello.
Christy Reed. See, isn't that easier right there?
Wow, yeah, look at that. And it doesn't like do that weird, it doesn't, how many, so we have, that's who's here with us. They're saying hello.
Yep.
And then
only the ones that are saying, that are talking.
And that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 people talking and 3 more people viewing.
Yep, we got 7 viewers, 7 comments.
Oh, and hello, Jane. Jane just entered. So we're acting like we got new tech. We don't really. It's just that it's been a minute since we did a live stream from our computer. And not our cell phones. And the cell phone live stream world looks completely different than this, doesn't it, Grymm?
Yes.
I didn't even know all this stuff existed out there.
Yep, I'm having fun. Anyways, we're getting ourselves distracted.
We're not even. Yeah, we'll talk to you guys in about 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. Hello.
Tammy says hello. Alicia says hello.
Welcome to 420 Tea and Tarot. Although today is not tea. I'm going to up my game on my tea again, because it's been a minute since I've had a good cup of tea on purpose, really. I usually like to brew my own water for my own purposes. And I just recently found the bottom half of the tea kettle. So things are coming together slowly but surely.
But now it's time to also restock the teas.
It is. It's time to restock the tea. I prefer to drink loose leaf tea. If I don't drink loose leaf tea, my favorite go-to, like just having tea is red rose or rose red, depending on how you read it. Some people read it interchangeably.
And I don't think they carry it at the grocery store we shop at any longer, because I never see it.
It's a really old brand. I think it's basically the same thing as Lipton's in that little cardboard box.
Yeah, but it's a different company, different blend a little
right,
bit. But it is
right,
good tea.
Right, it is. And it was something that, I remember was the go-to tea.
Yeah, but it is getting harder to find, at least where we shop in this area.
Right. So, anyways, I don't know what we were saying about that.
Oh, you're gonna up, so we're drinking coffee today.
Oh yeah, we've got some coffee that we're sharing, huh?
So it's tea it's taro and java today.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
Brandon's here.
Hi, Brandon.
So I have not been in the loop today, Gussie, too much as far as your chats go. I've just sort of been hearing peripherally what you've been talking about with folks through your various channels, but I've been kind of intrigued because I know it inspired the title of today's thing, and I know I think a personal experience has contributed to the title of today's reading. Liminal spaces and miracles. I'm intrigued.
Well, I'll bet you are, but you're not. We're not ready to go there
We're
yet,
not.
Mr. Grimm.
Oh, darn it. Okay, fine.
We're not ready to go there. We haven't lit. I want to light our candle. I want to let a few more people into this
Okay.
space. I have no concept of what time it is because I can't see that anymore. But um, I don't know.
33.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. This is about right.
Red rose, red rum, red rum.
I do love me some red rose tea. I just do. It's my favorite little 3 lumps of sugar, red rose tea, little teacup. All right, every witch, everyone.
One of these days we'll find a shirt that has arms that go past my wrist just a little bit.
That would be nice.
Yes, it would be. I got these darn gorilla arms.
I do like that purple shirt though.
Me too.
It's one of my favorites. All righty. Um, so let's just. Ooh.
Bring it on in.
I just feel like, people just kind of coming in for a landing. Woo! Just kind of parking it, just settling in for a little while, just, kind of trying to let this time be the time that you can go with the flow. It's Monday. For some of you, it's already been a long day. For most of us, it feels like it is the start of the work week for most people. Start of a new week. Um, that in and of itself is a liminal space, by the way. There is only one December. What is the date? The 8th? Or, January. Is it the 8th today?
Mm-hmm.
There's only one January 8th, 2024.
And
Except for all the other versions of this day.
so the transition between yesterday and today, that midnight that we've assigned as the transition between yesterday and today, is a liminal space as we move out of today and into tomorrow, which turns into yesterday.
And I think that a lot of people that are, I want to say paganly minded, I guess, are kind of guided by the moon and seasonally by the elements and connected like we are to magic. I feel like, I'm losing it. What had you just said?
Liminal space, yesterday, today, tomorrow, all kind of converges together at that midnight spot.
Oh, yes, thank you, babe. Because what I have come to recognize is that the witching hour
Mm-hmm.
falls anywhere between like 11 p.m. to about 4 a.m.
That's when people slow down too.
That's when the majority of people in your location slow down. I mean, there's less people working the midnight force than there are people that work day jobs.
Yeah, in my youth, I used to work graveyard shift from time to time at different gas stations and whatnot. And from about 2 in the morning to 4:35 in the morning was that very liminal time for me. There was no customers in the store other than the occasional. It was almost Twilight Zone feeling
Right.
in that time frame.
Right.
Just something's
right.
different, but not.
So it really, for me, it's not just, well, I'm an ish witch, so, I'm gray. I like to kind of, balance when I can. So for me, it isn't like a strict witching hour. It's like witching hours.
Mm.
This is the witching window.
Yeah.
I love that, witching
And
window.
that
I'm going
runs
to
you
coin
into
that phrase,
the witching window. But
the
that
witching
does
window.
run you into a slight different issue, though, is because during that witching hour,
Witching window.
the witching window, during the witching window, it's very disruptive to your natural sleep cycle if you're in a state of psychic awareness, heightened psychic awareness, especially,
Right,
where you're dealing with an excessive amount of shadows that are bringing on physical stresses.
right,
That witching hour also window also becomes shadow box hours. It
right,
wakes you up at night. You
right.
find yourself perseverating on those shadows.
Which is why I often, when people, as a matter of fact, I just had this conversation days ago with someone, uh, somewhere on Facebook, I think,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Purple Door. I don't remember who, but the point is that we were discussing that in those hours when you find yourself waking up at the same time every night. You know, for a while there for me it was 3 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 a.m. And I remember a long, long time ago when my grandmother was still alive, and it was shortly after my grandfather had crossed over. I remember her telling me that she continually woke up at 3:05. 3:05, there was no alarm that went off, but at 3:05 she would wake up every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me, uh, and that when my grandma is where I learned a lot of my wise lessons from. She uh, she told me, when you notice a pattern like that, get up. Get up or get a pencil and start writing. Get up and do something. Go go wash the dishes, start a project, complete a project,
Break that moment.
meditate. Right. Don't just lay there and like let things fester and allow yourself to worry, 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 worry. What's probably happening is that you're getting nudged from the spirit world. You're getting tapped on the shoulder by the ancestors, and they're trying to send you a message your guides are trying to get through. And they
So,
want you to do something mindful, but as you do in that quietness of those hours of the witching hour window,
mm-hmm.
then some of the world quiets into the background and you can focus a little more
Okay,
easily.
so that just answered my question. Is when you're in those moments, get out of bed, go do the dishes, get up and listen to some music, do something,
Right,
but also allow that self-reflection, that shadow to surface and
right,
and work through it. But you're in this calm space, that
right.
liminal space.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
I'm going to light our
Though it
candle.
pisses you off when you're awake at 3 in the morning and
Oh,
I'm laying there snoring away.
well, it doesn't piss me
I
off,
know.
but there's a part of me that wants to shake you awake and just like snuggle up and commiserate with you about this. But I've realized that that's kind of my time to sort of process in the quiet.
Okay.
I don't get a lot of time where
It's
I'm not where I'm by myself.
it's the equivalent of when I stay awake after everybody's gone to sleep.
Right. And you take walks with the dog quite frequently, and I know
Right.
the dog's with you, but I mean,
Right.
um, so I've come to kind of embrace that time, but I have yet to get up. I used to get up and start projects. I used to get up and um, I used to decoupage shoes. I don't do it anymore.
Deb says and get up at 3:33 in the morning and go check the purple door and look around for a while.
Yep, and I'll often find a purple door witch or two that's awake with me there.
In
So
the purple door, like just our like leaders chat or what?
all,
Oh,
both.
okay.
Yeah, there's usually someone that's
Gigi
awake.
says minus 3 a.m. also.
Hi, Gigi.
That's uh that's actually quite a common time for multiple reasons. There's
Hmm.
several different possible causes for it. Some of it might be that is your shadow work time. That
That's your
is your
witching
your
window.
witching window.
Right.
For other people, it's especially folks that are dealing with physical ailments, illnesses of different varieties. 3 a.m. if you're asleep also kind of corresponds with when your liver starts to really dump the toxins, process the shittiness that has come through the body for that day. And for some of us, especially if we're health compromised, that jolts our system awake, that surge of whatever the liver is processing. Some of you may wake up feeling fluttery, anxiety ridden. That might be the shadow side, but it could also be associated with that toxin processing. Some might wake up feeling sick to their stomach and nauseous and just bleh.
Mm-hmm.
That is most likely the toxin dump that's
Because,
taking
well,
place.
and remember, doesn't it just make sense? Because body,
Mm-hmm.
mind, spirit,
Yeah,
right? So it's all connected.
right.
So we take a toxic dump here and we take a toxic dump here.
Toxic dump.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm still a sophomore at heart.
I'm going to light our pink lotus candle because those of you that know, the pink lotus blossom is important to this group of people because it's come to represent rising out of really uncomfortable spaces. It's a flower that will grow in a swamp. Um, I've even seen it in some of those games, the
Mm-hmm.
kids, the video games.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, that's pink lotus growing everywhere, all over one of those games that they play. I don't remember which one,
we'll have to
Bioshock or
we'll have
something
to
like that.
see. I'm not sure.
Anywho, so let this light illuminate and let it carry the warmth of the energy of this group that we have created in the past. Let it bind together with the energies that we have shared together in the past. And let it gently pull us forward toward our own next best step where we join together in the future. I call upon our Mother, Father, God, Goddess energy, our own past lives, any from the Fey realm, any gods, goddesses that represent here, the power within, the power without, animals, plants, and crystal allies that are here for our greatest and highest good. May they guide us. May we honor them. Connect, connect, connect. Clear, clear what you don't need. Connect what you do. Clear what you don't need. Connect what you do. May the words I say be the words that need to be heard, and Grymm too. And may they be heard with understanding clearly. And you know what? If you don't know, ask. And so it is. Did you like that one, babe?
I did because as you were talking about the pink lotus, that has slowly become kind of a symbol of this particular group, this gathering time. I realized that as a coven builds, a physical coven or a coven online, 13 people of intention gathering to create a sacred circle. Within that coven, they start to create sigils and symbology that becomes sacred to those people. And for this time and in this place, the 420 Tarot has started to develop some of those same symbologies, weaving together a personal folklore around the word withstanding, around the roots that connect us all to our own personal tree, our trunk that branches out, reaches skyward into the universe, those symbols sacred to this time and in this place. So, in our own way, 420 Tarot is more than just Gussie and I sitting here speaking about whatever topics happen to come up while we dispense our own brand, our own version of spiritual and emotional advice. We're creating a coven, a community that draws strength from each other.
I didn't realize I was playing.
You're playing with it. That draws strength from each other. That knows that we can lean on one another. That when our guiding light starts to grow dim because we're tired, fatigued, overwhelmed, stressed out, hurting, others of us have a light that we can hold up a little bit higher so you're not left in the dark.
You know what? Can I tell you something, Grymm?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot. Yes, I can. Wait a minute. Yes, I can believe that you're talking about this right now.
Okay.
Because remember, as I was coming up the stairs just a little while ago, when you asked me what the topic was, I said there was a third thing, and I couldn't remember what it was. It was the synchronicity of a particular vision that I or you or we shared several years ago when we first began our 7-ish live streams back in 2020. When the COVID, right before the COVID lockdown started, I think, or somewhere right around that time, we decided to start going live. And, oh shoot, I'm losing it.
Third thing in the title.
Oh, yes, thank you. One of the images that you and I both embraced at that time, and I know we shared it with our group that was following us then, and I know some of them are still here. Bless y'all, pea picking hearts. But the concept was that we were like these seedlings buried deep in the ground under a lot of other gnarly roots that we're connected to.
Right.
And part of our journey is to come up out of that dark place, to find the path of least resistance for you and find your way up and out. And during this process, from the darkness, letting go of shadows, letting go of that dank energy, no pun intended, 420 followers. But I don't mean dank in that way, but I mean that dark, dense energy.
Musty.
And it's, you know what, we've been down there for a while. Some of us have been down there for protection. Some of us have been down there because our bloodlines have been kept in the dark for so long.
But regardless of what creatures and animals call the deep, dark earth their home and may hibernate or live within the ground for months at a time, years at a time, there's still a cycle of when they have to come up for light. They can't stay down in that darkness forever. The cicadas, the plants, they have the roots, but they still reach for the light.
That image has been coming back, back and back. Even I think Gemmed Up was talking something about it yesterday, and it's like, you know, I notice when these things pop up, these themes. I look for patterns all the time. That's where I find the synchronicity and magic in my life. And this one has been coming up, so I am so, like, I love you even more.
Okay.
We're so in tune.
We're in tune.
Yes.
Well, let's either tell me what you're talking about there, or if it's part of what the overall title and theme of the talk is tonight.
Well, I just wanted to say on the kind of on the end of that note, and I guess I was thinking we might talk about. I'm going to sneeze.
Hatsui.
Hello and welcome. Bless me. Thank you. Hello and welcome. Pardon me. Those who know me, when I start to channel or connect with the ancestors, I often get a little bit sneezy. Haven't overcome that one yet, although I'm getting better. Um, okay, so about that kind of climbing out of the darkness, out of the tunnels. Those of you that ascribe to the Fey folklore that we talk about from time to time will know that we very much believe that coming back to the surface is a process, coming back to the top. And some of us are way showers. We hold the lantern up so that others can see for a little while, and we stand there and we are like, "Come on, come on, come on! You go ahead of me, go ahead of me, go ahead of me!" And we get them running up the tunnels, and then we follow. Yes, it sounds a little rodenty. Don't worry about that part.
We're just moles.
It does sound a little bit like that, but no, I don't know why that was important to bring up, but like someone needed to hear that or something because it's been such a theme these last several days
That's
about this
interesting.
route. I
Even
Yeah,
the way our trip to Ohio planned out for me, the way it played out was very much your root, the base of who you are. And I
right.
got to experience that for the first time in our relationship. I got to see the root, the base, the trunk, the branches, some of the leaves,
That was cool,
and
wasn't it?
it was a very special treat. It was a treat to witness.
We went to my great great niece's birthday. Is that what it is? Great
Yeah,
great
great
niece?
great niece.
And we haven't seen that side of the family in almost 20 years,
Yep,
except for my sister. But the rest of the family, it's been like 20 years. So,
and your sister's been like 15.
yeah. So, well, at least 10.
Yep.
So, anyways, we went with mixed feelings, weren't sure how we were going to be received. And, the last time we both um, weren't doing Purple Door stuff full time. We both had full time jobs and had steady income, and we had jobs they could understand. Let's just put it that way. Or so we thought. I mean, I was worried way more about how they might perceive me than they actually did.
Hmm.
I mean,
We even talked about it a little bit on it. We weren't going to disguise what we do, who we are
I
in any
mean,
way, but we did. You and I had to kind of talk ourselves through, okay, when they ask, what do you guys do? Or what are you doing? What's going on in your lives?
yeah.
How are we
Well,
going to answer?
yeah, we
But we
did.
were going to answer truthfully. We weren't going to.
Right, but we just wanted to both kind of know where we stood on this one.
Yep.
I don't want somebody, I don't want Grymm saying, "Oh, we publish an online magazine," and I'm over here saying that we run a church. Like I don't, I mean, I wanted it to be both of those things are true, but they're both also
They need mutual understanding of
right,
what that means
right.
before we announce it to a world that you grew up in, but at the same time didn't grow up in.
Right. I left that community when I was 19 and
Yeah,
kind of never looked back. I've
yeah.
kept in touch with a few people, and this is where the story that I want to share with you today about the miracle comes from. And I'm sorry, this might be a little bit of a long-winded one, so settle in, make sure your butt's comfy. Uh,
But it is magic that needs to be
it's
shared.
it was a really wonderful weekend. Not only did we get to see,
And I'm so happy Siege is here to hear you tell this story.
oh, hi, Siege, love you. Not only did we get to see several generations, my sister was there. She is in her 80s. She's 25 years older than me. She was there and, still walking, still laughing, still cognizant for the most part, I think.
Hmm.
Able to carry on great conversation, and I haven't seen her in a while, but she's, doing okay. And I saw some friends from high school. Grymm got to say hi to the folks that he'd met in previous visits there. And then all the children. I mean, there must have been like 15 children there. And they were all,
Toddlers to babies.
yeah, and they were just, all so splendidly wonderful to be in this mixture of folks. And on the way home, we stopped at the cemetery where uh, my mother's family is buried. And so,
Going back to settler days.
right. So yeah, there's a tombstone there that we don't really even know who this woman is. We just have her name, but her name is written in blue and white tile.
Hmm.
And that's it. We only have a name. We
Yeah,
don't have a year. We don't have a,
it's little mosaic square
right.
tiles, just writing her name.
Those of
And
you that are into mysteries, maybe we'll share that picture with you and you on the Ancestor Guild. That'd be
yeah,
a fun one.
that would be a fun one.
But anyways, we went there and Grymm put quarter tokens on all the gravestones, and it was really a magical day from start to finish. Uh, we were running 20 minutes late getting to our daughter's apartment, and even though we stopped for coffee, we went a different direction than we normally go, and we ended up shaving
30 minutes.
30 minutes off of our time. So we were going to be 30 minutes ahead. And the way she took my daughter drove, the way she drove, just happened to take us in a direction that we hardly ever go. And I don't even remember the last time I had driven down State Route 51 in Ohio. It was kind of the main artery highway from my little town that I grew up in.
From Toledo to where you grew up.
From Toledo to where I grew up, it was about a 25-30 minute drive. So as a teenager, if we wanted to go to the mall or anything like that, and we're talking the 80s, so we went to the mall. We went usually up State Route 51, and that's where the mall used to be located. So it was trip down memory lane for me as we were driving down Highway
There was so
51.
much of you. This is where, this is
Yeah,
where,
I had
this
to
is
keep
where.
interrupting everybody in the car because like these are places that I have told Grimm stories about or missed or Rihanna stories about, and so I felt like I was kind of hogging the conversation, but it was just a really cool experience. As we get closer to my hometown, and I mean, I remember that was at Bellner's house, and I think that's where his father died, and that's my old church, and that's where Pastor Clark used to live, and that is, I just like kind of went through, I just
An
recognized all these
inventory of
different,
your youth.
yeah, it was really cool. And as we get closer to my town, I asked my daughter if she would mind turning down my street that I used to live on when I grew up, where I grew up. The house that when I came home from the hospital, that's where I lived, and I lived there till I was 19 when my parents died. So she's like, sure, yeah. So she turns, and we go down this road. It's one of those roads that ends in a turnabout. It doesn't, it's kind of a dead end. You get to turn around at the end, and there's definitely a line of where World War II brick homes was built in the 80s, and then you can see the jump where the 90s took over. But I had moved out
Yeah,
by then.
yeah. You're the first four houses on your block were the World War II,
Yes.
1940
Yep.
brick.
Brick. Yep. So we go down and we slow a little bit. We slow down a little bit in front of the house that I grew up in. My dad built that house, and they used to send kits to soldiers. Soldiers could either take a chunk of money and invest it themselves, or they could receive a kit home as part of their pension for being in World War II. And my dad picked a home, so he built this brick home, and he put a lot of love into it, and he kept it really top notch. And everybody knew that in town because my dad was just really well known for. Uh, he was just very well mechanically inclined. Could make anything work. Um, so my daughter turns down this road. I hope I'm not boring everybody. We tootle down my road. We slow down in front of my old house. I'm pointing out the tree that I used to try to climb. I point, this and that out, a couple things. And then we go on down and we turn around and we're coming back. And as we're coming back, uh, there's a woman standing on the front porch of this house. And she's waving at us.
And flagging us into the driveway.
And flagging us into the driveway. Now, a little backstory. My father used to work every day at Sun Oil Company. He was an electrical foreman for the Sunoco Company.
For the refinery.
Right. And he would work, usually came home by 4. He would eat some dinner, and then he would go out to his garage, and he would work on cars. He had a steady line of cars in the driveway at all times because people from all around would bring their car to my dad because he was A, good, B, I think probably more affordable and fair, and C, he would just like dispense this.
When you brought your car to Lem to be worked on, you're sitting in his garage, he's working on your car, and he's holding court. He's dispensing life advice, telling stories, and bonding with the community.
Right. So there were certain younger men. I mean, they were men that had like young children.
Yes.
But they would come and
young family men.
Yes, young family men. They would come and hang out with my dad, lean over the car and watch him doing whatever he's doing with this and that and helping him find whatever he's looking for. And just, I would say, like some of you, I know that I call you like daughters of my heart. And I feel like my dad had sons of his heart. I really do. And the fellow that bought my mom and dad's house after they passed away, his name, I'll just give his first name, Merlin. He was one of those young family men that would come over on the weekends or sometimes after work and hang out with my dad. He was one of the people that I saw there regularly, hanging out, drinking a cup of coffee, talking to my dad, talking about cars, talking about life, and they went to the same church as we did.
And remember, your dad, too, was a generation older than most of your peers.
Oh, right. If my father were alive, he would be in his hundreds right now, because he was born in 1918.
Yeah.
So he would be quite old. So, yes, a lot of people thought my grandparent, or my mom and dad were my grandparents.
Yeah.
So, Merlin would come over a lot. So when I knew that he was the one that was wanting to buy the house, as a matter of fact, I'm not positive, but I think if memory serves, he was one of the men that found my dad after he had died
in the house.
So, but
long story short, he and his young wife and young daughter bought that home.
Right, they bought that
home. From your family estate.
And that's where they raised their daughter. I don't know how old she was when they bought it, but she was probably
old enough.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years old, maybe 9, 10, I don't know. Who knows? I don't remember. But anyhow, they bought the house, and that's where they raised her, or continued to raise her, and I was happy. But I never stopped in. I would drive by from time to time, but really I didn't get back to that part of Ohio very frequently. A big old part of me was so broken from there, and felt so bereft and lonely and shadowed there that I didn't take myself back very frequently.
You didn't feel welcome in your own hometown and in your own heart.
Right.
And not by the people.
Not by the people, no. The people.
By your own shadows.
By my own pain there. It was almost like the memories were too great, because I no longer had a place to be there in that town. So my life went its own direction, and I kind of left that town in the past. And people would ask me from time to time if I ever saw if I ever had gone to see the interior of my dad's house since then. And I always said, no, I've thought about it a few times, but I've never done so.
But here she was as we drove by on the doorstep.
We're driving by, and she's waving and motioning us in. And Rihanna says, well, Mom, what do I do? And I said, well, we've got to pull in now because
It'd be rude.
it'd be rude if we don't. So we pull in. And I don't know how she could recognize me. I mean, I don't look anything like I did when I was.
Yeah, the front
This
door
is
is
38 years ago.
and the front door's 100 feet off the road. You're
Right.
in a car, windows are rolled up, but here she was.
Waving at us. So I rolled the window down and I said, hi. I said, I'm not sure who you think I am, but and I told her my birth name. And she got big saucer eyes and her mouth dropped open. And of course, she's a great grandma herself now.
She went pale.
And
then flush.
And then I jumped out and we held on to each other and both of us got teary-eyed, and it was just this really intense moment. And she was saying, I can't believe you're here. I can't believe you're here. And I said, I know. I said, I haven't set foot on this property since 1986. And I've often wondered what it's like on the inside, but I've never knocked or stopped by. And she goes, oh my goodness, come inside, come inside. She goes,
But then I saw her face at that point, when I saw her kind of waving you in, she kind of hesitated and her face just dropped for a moment.
Right. And I said, how did you know? I said, why were you outside motioning? And she goes, oh. She said, I thought you were the hospice nurse that couldn't find the address. And I said, hospice nurse? And she said, yes. She said, Merlin just went into hospice yesterday. So we both, tear up again. And, I haven't seen these people in 38 years, but there's such a foundation of my memories from growing up and interacting with them at both church. She was my choir director that I often will talk about from church. And, he hung out with my dad all the time. So it was it was a small town and everybody kind of knew each other.
And last time you saw them, they were a young couple.
Last time I saw them was 38 years ago. So yes. And so she invites me in, and we both decide that since Merlin is not well, that the rest of my family is going to stay out in the car, but she'd like me to come in and see the place, say hi to Merlin. As a witch, you know how it is going in the front door of a place. It's honestly the first time I've walked in the front door of that house as a guest.
You've never been invited into that home.
I've never been invited in like that. I was born there, and it was just always home until 38 years ago. And so
until yesterday.
Or last Saturday. So she opens the door and welcomes me in, and I step through this threshold, and it was like, wow. Talk about liminal spaces. For me, this house is a liminal space, because it was a space that I was at for a while, but I wasn't meant to be there for long. And as I stepped through it, I actually felt as if I was stepping into a different world. I also realize, as a death walker, that death walker also goes as like a death doula.
A spirit transitionalist.
Yes, right, exactly. So I do have training in that area, and I work with clients that need my help in that area. Typically, I help their family members, but
aware that death is in the building.
I recognized that density of death that hangs out, that pallor, that sort of just hangs out in the space where death is near. And I walked in and I recognized immediately some of the key points that when I when I meditate and focus on that home, there are some key points that pop out, like the fireplace that my dad built. It's just gorgeous. It looks different than I remembered it. There's a drawer in the hallway that I remember. It was one of those built-in drawers into the wall. And the bottom drawer is where my mother kept all the photographs. This house was the magical foundation of where I learned to deal with some of the demons that are out there. I've had paranormal shit happen to me since I was a little girl. And that house was where I shivered under the covers many a night, not knowing how to handle any of these things, and vowing that if I was old enough and understood enough, I would share it and teach other people. Yes, I did. So I'm walking through, and she takes me around to see Merlin. And he looks up and he goes, I can't believe you're here. He goes, I'm having a heart attack. And my face must have went like, oh, and he goes, no, I don't mean for real, but like, I can't believe you're here. I just can't believe you're here. And I hugged him, and he told me he wasn't feeling well, and that was clear. And I felt like I just kind of blew into the room, and then I blew on out of the room because his wife whisked me into the kitchen, or maybe I whisked myself. I don't recall. I was in the house for less than 5 minutes, I think, maybe 10.
It was less than 5.
And and I knew this nurse was coming. The only reason that she came out was she thought that I was the nurse. Had we been a little bit earlier or a little bit later, she might not have been looking out that window when we drove by slowly. And she might never have called
As it
me.
is, the nurse arrived while we were there.
Yeah, the nurse arrived
And
while we were there.
if we would have arrived after the nurse's arrival,
We wouldn't
we
have
wouldn't have
been allowed
stopped.
in. When I went in there, I felt my dad's presence so clearly. And I knew that as I walked around that corner and looked at Merlin, that I carried my dad's energy with me. I knew that I carried him with me, and I knew on some level I felt like I reminded Merlin of my father. I brought my father's energy to him, or somehow, the fact of the matter is this man was in hospice now, preparing to die in the very house that my father
The
died
very
in.
room, right?
Not the very room.
Just the house. Okay. But in a lazy boy chair, just
In a
like your.
chair like my father. And it had to cross his mind. And here we were hugging each other and crying. And then she's taken me through the rest of the house, and I'm looking at my bedroom, and I'm looking at my mother and father's bedroom, and the bathroom, and the basement, and my brother's room, and this little rec room area, and the
It had to be strange because
it was surreal.
when you picture your home, your family home, the place you grew up in your mind's eye, there's certain pictures on the wall. The furniture is arranged in a particular way. The way the light plays on the paint in the room or the wallpaper in the room. The whole energy is
Right,
what
it's
you
like a
remember, a
snapshot.
snapshot. So when you
Right.
walked in there, for the most part, everything was the same, yet it's different pictures, different furniture, different energy and light.
Oh,
And
the kitchen itself was a completely different era.
yeah, so
Because
different
they had
countertops and
updated it from my mom's like 1970s, 80s kitchen to they probably updated their kitchen a few times because it looked
somewhat
like
new.
new, like somewhat new, right? So it was really a time warp
What touched me
and
though
wonderful.
is the fact that when you told me when you looked into the garage, your dad would have been impressed.
My dad would have been really
He would have been
impressed.
proud,
He
happy.
was a fastidious man about his tools, and he kept it very neat and tidy. And when I looked into the garage as I left. The nurse was already in the front room with the living room with Merlin, and I told Jeannie, you know what, I would probably do better just going out the back. Just let me slip out the back door. Give Merlin my love, and I'll be in touch. And we hugged, and I peeked into the garage as I pulled away from her, and my eyes must have looked big because the garage was neat and tidy, just like my dad would have kept it. And she goes, "Oh, no one goes in there. Nothing goes in there without Merlin's permission." And
Nobody touches a thing.
and it was just this sort of like little sacred space. That was just one of those
Yeah.
things. So I walked out, vowing that I'd be in touch with her, and I told Grymm, I feel poorly that I didn't get to say goodbye to Merlin, but as Grymm pointed out,
For 5 minutes, for more than 5 minutes, I'm sure, but for those 5 minutes that Gussie was there, neither of them were sitting in the shadow of death. That specter of death was lifted for just a few moments, and Merlin was brought back to his youth when he was a young man, strapping and strong and just starting out on his life. And he was able to bring back that memory, even if just for 5 minutes, of standing in that garage with Gussie's father, wrenching on a car and hearing the life advice that moved him enough, that changed him enough to say that this is the home that I want to raise my family in. This is the shadow of a man that I want to help guide me as I raise my family. And by all accounts, he raised a wonderful family.
oh yeah,
A family that lived and loved inside of that home just as much passion as Gussie's family. But it was pallid in sadness when Gussie arrived. But 5 minutes later,
I felt
boop,
like a little flitting fairy, just
yep,
kind of.
I tear
I
up.
kind of came in and dropped in these little places, and then I was off
Yep,
again. And I knew as we were driving home, I said, Grymm, there was some magic there because for 38 years I've never stepped foot on that property. It was completely kismet that I that we were driving by just at that moment and that I was able to go into that house, and it cleared a lot of painful memories. It was a liminal space for me, as I said.
yeah,
And
and a
so,
miracle.
and a miracle because there was Merlin. And I told Graham I wanted to contact her right away because I wanted to just say how much I appreciated her showing me the house and how great it was to see them again after so long, and that I wanted to tell Merlin a proper goodbye. She had invited us back, of course, anytime, and we just found out this morning that we actually might be going back a little earlier than we had presumed because Merlin passed away this morning. And I've marveled all day long at how the universe maneuvered that around so that, because he's been on my mind since Saturday. I've got him on my altar. I've been remembering all kinds of things. So, I've been involved in my own energetic way of saying goodbye to this man. And
And in a way, an era of your life.
an era of my life, absolutely. Someone that, if I hadn't waited 38 years, I could have shared some stories with him about my dad. He might have even known some things I didn't know.
But as of this morning, he is now one of the guides.
Right?
He's on the other side of the bridge. And like I said this morning when we found out that he passed, that portal of death was already opened when you stepped through the door of
It
that
really
home.
was. I could
The
feel it.
death portal was there. And I don't know what condition the edges of that portal was before you walked through the door, if it was jagged and stripped with fear and decorated in trepidation. But I know that when you walked out that door, that portal was smooth. It was vibrant. It was
I
decorated in readiness.
I felt myself step over the threshold. It was interesting, and I knew they were on a death watch.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, as we drove out of town that night, there were 4 or 5 cars in the driveway, and I just knew it wasn't going to be very long. But I'm so honored to have been part of that process. It shows you that one of the things I was taught when I did my Death Walker training is that the spirits that need you will find you. Some of them will be in the form of like somebody knows that you do this and they're having a difficult time letting go of their mother because their mother's going to cross over soon. And so you help the mother cross over, understanding what's next, and have long conversations with them about that sort of thing. And you help the family understand some ways that they can prepare for this next transition.
The spiritual side of it, not the muggle so much on
Right,
that
the
end.
the spiritual side. Yeah, I don't do the muggling, medical care or anything like that. It's just completely spiritual.
As beautiful as this story is, I do want to elaborate on my own personal observation of the day too.
Okay, I don't remember what I was going to finish with though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Fart,
trying to.
Grim. You.
I'm
I'm going to
sorry.
elbow you.
I hearing hearing you recap that portion of our trip, just that portion of the experience, hearing it again from your perspective,
Hmm.
I tried to put myself in a place where I didn't get to witness it. I'm only hearing about it from the very first time, for the very first time. I'm trying to remove my own
Right.
emotions from that. And I can tell that that really did have an effect on it moved you. It
Oh,
because when
I
you stepped out of that house, I think even moments before you stepped in, but I know for sure when I watched you walk back to the car before you got in, you were a foot taller,
I did. I felt
you
like
were
I was
lighter. You there
walking
was
tall.
Yeah, there was something about your energy that just had shifted. And I know leading up to going on this trip, there was some slumped
And it was
shoulders.
and it was funny because while we were at the birthday party, I kept telling you I feel so much
I know,
taller than
yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
and it was just kind of a funny thing, but it was a magical day. It was truly a magical
It
day.
was. I think it cleansed some shadows that you've been carrying, or at least made those shadows a little more.
I don't know.
I can't say they're gone because I mean we just went through this experience, but I think that it made the shadows seem a little less heavy
What I found interesting for me is how everything looked so much smaller.
inside your house.
Yes, and I think that it's because most of the core memories that will pop up as pictures that we talked
Hmm.
about were made when I was a smaller person.
Yeah,
I wasn't making those same like pivotal memories necessarily as an older person. I
yeah.
already had the concept of what the fireplace was in my mind. So when I thought of fireplace in my dad's house,
You
boom,
saw it from that
right.
perspective.
But when I saw it on Saturday, it looked like I could tell that was the fireplace, but it just looked smaller and different than
Every
I.
aspect of the house did, didn't it?
Everything looked different. The
Yeah, and
doors, the
not I
windows,
think
my
not only is it
room.
because of your perspective that your memories that are fused in there from when you were little, that house was the center of your universe for so long.
It really was.
Every emotion that you experienced for 19 years was processed inside that home. That home represented everything that you were as a person.
Right.
And then after you left the home, it was with such trauma. There was so many shadows associated with leaving Elmore that your shadows even
the
filled
way
that
I the
space.
way I kind of look at it is, my father died in that space,
Hmm.
and the final time that I walked out of the house, I wrapped that house and that town in my grief. I
Yeah.
wrapped my grief around all of it, and so on Saturday when I walked through that front door, I really felt like I was walking right into the kind of the heart of my grief. And there I was walking into probably what was the heart of her grief
Yep.
and Merlin's grief. And it was just, it was surreal. And even when she was taking me around to show me, oh, look, this is what we did with the kitchen. And, and I'm like, honey, I can come back. I mean, you go be with Merlin. She's like, no, 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 I really want you to walk through this house. This was your house too. And so she's insisting, so I'm following her. And we get to the space where my dad was sitting when he crossed over. And she's like, and this is where your father died. And I'm like, yes, I know. Just wait till it gets out someday that two people have died in that house, and that's where the witch Gussy grew up.
Oh, and she was there.
It'll be on some paranormal
Oh,
haunted
yeah,
thing.
there you go. Can I share my experience of the day? Not
Absolutely.
not that part of it, but leading up to going down there to this birthday party for that cutest little girl. Geez, I know.
Totally little fey
Yeah,
children.
for you, there was your own set of emotions that you were processing as we were leading up to the trip, and for me, there was too, because my perception of family is based on my experiences, the
Mm-hmm.
way I experienced homecoming, the
Mm.
way I experienced my hometown. So after I had been gone for many, many years, and you and I went back to my hometown, to what I consider my hometown, the reception that I received was very cold in comparison to what other families would have done. My relationship, once I got back to my hometown, never really manifested with my family. The healing was never given a chance to take place. And for whatever reason that they held resentments, and for whatever reason I held resentments, I can honestly say I don't have a real family connection to my hometown any longer, though many members of my family still live there. So before we went to Elmore, knowing that you had been gone for a long time with very limited exposure to your hometown and the people therein, knowing what my family's reception would have been upon arrival, that's what I was kind of emotionally prepared for when we arrived. So when we got there and we opened up the doors to the community center, the heart of your hometown, into a building that was completely filled and loaded with members of your family, the very root of who you are, I was expecting cold and callous, indifferent to our arrival, to the reunion. But instead, what I saw was so many lit up eyes and souls that recognized one of their own, hugs, and just an absolute acceptance
Yeah, it
of
was
your
pretty
of
magical.
your arrival.
It was magical.
And it
That's
didn't turn into it, and that was the other side that I noticed, is not only did it not turn into a cold indifference that we were there, your arrival, even after all of these many years, didn't take away from the celebration of that
oh
child's
no.
party in any way.
No, it was a wonderful
It was
day.
just a beautiful experience. So when we were leaving, I had an opportunity to really say, though fractured my family may be, they're not the only definition of what family is.
That's true, sweetheart.
And hearing the stories that I've heard growing, that you shared growing up, your experiences always involved some member of your family, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, a grandma, a nanny. And when it wasn't a true member of your family, of your DNA bloodline, it was an adopted family member, somebody that had been so intertwined with your family somewhere in the tree that their family line just sort of evolves with yours.
Right.
So it was an opportunity for me to see a glimpse into what I now see is they may not be the heart of Elmore. Your family may not be the
Mm.
true pulsing heart of Elmore, but what I see now is they are an example of what the heart of community could mean. Because through it all, they're still there with open arms and willingness and a willingness to say you're one of us, regardless of where your path went and where it's going. I love that of your family. Thanks for
I do
sharing it
too.
with me. I couldn't stop.
So, liminal spaces, places you're not meant to be for a very long time. One of those places was the mall that used to be the mall that we would go to as teenagers and hang out in Ohio, this little town in Ohio. And as we drove by it that day on the way to the birthday party, it was nothing but a raised. It was a. It wasn't even a parking lot anymore. It was
A grass field.
a grass field. And so where the a mall once stood, where I sat on Santa Claus's lap and cried about the Easter Bunny and had to go try on shoes with my mother and
The J.C. Penney's and the
yes,
Sears and
yep, Garanimals and all those things, all those memories kind of gone. But malls are liminal spaces. And the reason I want to say this is there's a little bit of information going on out there that we have yet to really prove or disprove
you suckered me.
as authentic.
You suckered
No, I
me.
didn't.
Yes, you
Shush,
did.
shush. So you may or may not hear about this on the news. Well, you're not going to hear it on mainstream news probably, although you might hear about it as a hype thing. There was an occurrence at a mall in Miami, Florida, and I'm not saying I believe that it's true or that I disbelieve that it's true or that I've authenticated anything, but I do believe that you can go search that if you want to. It involves people supposedly responding to seeing some creatures or entities that didn't look quite human.
In Fort Lauderdale, right?
I think
Yeah.
it was Miami.
No, it was Fort Lauderdale.
Was it? Florida. You can tell how we pay attention to details. But anyway, some people are saying it was a bunch of teenagers that were just trying to do what was one of those.
It was a big gang fight. Teenage street fight gotten out of hand.
And other people say that they saw 8 to 10 foot aliens or zombies or Nephilim or something like that. Now, again, I'm not saying, I'm not asking for you fact checkers out there to tell me that I'm wrong or right, because I'm not subscribing either way at this point. I don't know enough. But I do want to tell you is as you hear these stories about um, this occurrence, and you probably will because it's coming across my feed in little bits and pieces now. Um, Realize that places like malls are liminal spaces. Liminal spaces are where we only go for a little while. They're meant to be occupied only, a little while, not like an apartment building where someone is usually always living
And there's
or
many thresholds. Each threshold transitioning into a different energy, though
right.
similar energy.
So places like schools, parks, churches, malls, those places where we gather in public and then go home, those places, community centers, those places, Masonic halls, those places, those places tend to be liminal spaces. They tend to be portals. Portals. It's where the veil, if you will, look at it that way, the veil is a little bit thinner than other places. And so if entities or energies are bound to cross over, it's a little easier for them to get through there. So I'm not saying either way what happened in Florida. I don't know enough about it yet myself.
I will say this from my own personal perspective and folklore and the way I view magic and the way portals work. We create portals in this realm just by our own vibrations. our own combined vibrations can harmonize in such a way that portals can then become usable, crossable.
I mean, I agree. And this place, wait till you guys see the footage of it. They had like, I don't know how many police cars.
Well, it's an interesting video, but my point being, when we open up those kind of portals, they're tuned to those types of emotions that open them to begin with. And we're living in a time in society where a lot of chaotic emotion is taking place, and those are the types of portals that could potentially open within these liminal spaces. Chaotic portals allowing chaotic energies to pass through.
Well, I've heard some accounts that people said that those beings weren't menacing or frightening at all.
Right.
So if I may,
but if they're coming from a place that's turning chaotic and wanting to escape that chaos,
okay.
maybe.
Well, I have a thought that I'd
Right.
like to throw out there, and you've heard me say it before, but scientists say that we only can use about 3% of our visual acuity is only that of about 3%. We can only see about 3% of the known visible universe. That means 97% of things out there we can't see because we don't have the ability to see at that level. Whether it
And we're
be
not talking about just what's way out there in the great beyond. We're talking about what's right here around
what's
us.
right here around
The
us.
space between my face and this computer camera, I can only see about 3% of what's between us in my field of view.
Right. So when you think about that, and you think about how if realities truly are kind of existing one next to another, next to another, next to another, next to another, and the only thing that really ripples in between them is this sort of cosmic fabric that keeps one dimension from another. Um, some people say we've already kind of moved into the fifth dimension. I've known for several years, we started hearing when we would get our downloads that we were entering a new dimension, a new density for the Earth. And so we've been talking a lot about ascension and ascension symptoms and what that feels like. But I feel like it's highly possible that at that mall that day, there was some kind of chaotic energy brought about by some teenagers that were threatening or whatnot at that mall, right? Trying to do a takeover or whatever. But at the same time, there were people that, so some people saw that. And some people who are maybe on a slightly higher frequency or just their minds are open to a little bit more than just that 3%,
Yep.
then they saw these 8-foot creatures.
Yep. There's an author that I used to love reading when I was a younger guy, Pierce Anthony.
I love Pierce Anthony.
He, in so many ways, set the foundation to my love of magic and the paranormal. But he describes these curtains of separation as the land is the same, the mountain ranges are the same, the trees are the same, where things are growing are essentially the same. It's what myself, the me, can perceive that makes this reality, this 3D existence. There's other entities that are seeing it slightly different and they're phasing us out. Our existence isn't there.
Right, they can't see us.
So the curtains that divide these realms, they're nothing more than frequency buffers. Their energy, the frequency of that reality is incongruent with the energy of this reality to some degree. Therefore, a curtain becomes a thing. And these portals are where for just a moment the frequencies mesh. As the curtains move and undulate, these frequencies sometimes overlap. And where they overlap, they become congruent, and those realities can then bend and become one.
Yep.
Sometimes for just a moment, and sometimes long enough to allow things to pass back and forth.
I love that. That's a great way to describe it.
I liked Pierce Anthony.
I didn't read I read one book of his, It was A Spell for Chameleon, but that was really good.
Hmm.
And I don't know that I got into his description of sort of the veils there,
Right.
but that is definitely, he and I could sit down and have a cup
Oh
of
yeah.
tea and discuss
One of
that.
the series that he wrote that I just absolutely loved was the Apparent to Depth series, where this man lived in a land of science, where science dominated everything, and right down to how you ate. But on the other side of the curtain was a land just like his, with the same people, the same animals, the same creatures, but their magical counterpart to the scientific.
Oh yeah,
So as you crossed the veil, you shed everything of muggle, of mundane, and into the land of magical.
that's kind of how it is when we cross over.
Yep, it's exactly how it is. Only in his world, you get to go back and forth with at will, and you live the life of whichever one you want.
Well,
Blah blah
that
blah.
is kind of how it
It is
is.
kind of is how it is, I guess. Okay. Thanks, Pierce.
At least in the near realms, that's kind of how it
Yep.
is. All right. Well, I pulled two cards. Well, they pulled themselves. They popped right out. And I kind of want to let folks read this for themselves.
Okay.
So the first card I'm going to show you is going to be kind of a challenge. For those of you that follow us on 420ish Tea and Tarot, I think we just pulled this card last week. So you might go, oh, I recognize the imagery. But this time we pulled it in the reverse position. So take a few minutes to look at the picture and ask yourself, what is this card trying to say? If you're comfortable enough, write it down in the comments below. I'm going to show it to you here. I'm going to move that over there, Grimmer.
Okay.
All right, it is, dun da da da, the, oops, how do I show that without getting in the light there? The Prince of Swords. It's the light from the computer, love.
I can't help you there. I was hoping I'd help a little.
Wait, I promise I'll stop moving it. Hold on.
It means slow.
Just a minute. Okay, that's going to have to be the best I can do. It is Loki again. Do you recognize that card from last week? I'll bet you do.
You know, somewhere on the computer we have a picture of every card that you have in this
I
deck.
know we do. And this is what it looks like right side up. Remember this fella? Okay, what does it mean in the reverse position? Here it is again. You guys take a guess. Or if you know what Prince of Swords stands for, don't just guess.
Is this a
But
case of what is its traditional meaning, or what does it mean to you?
when I do my readings, I kind of blend the two. I'll take the traditional meaning and then I kind of listen to what the card says and look at the.
That's funny. Susan just said that was the card pulled on Friday that you asked us to contemplate over the weekend.
Oh, well, here we are
Yeah,
now.
that's right. On Friday, you did do that.
Oh, Susan, thank you for remembering that. That's incredible. Because, yes, this is the card that we talked about last week, only it was in the upright position then. And so today it pops back up. What thoughts did you have about this card over the weekend? What thoughts did you have about what you thought about on Friday during 420 Tarot? Because evidently the universe wants us to revisit that concept again. So I'm looking forward to reading your comments. So that's the first card that popped out.
You know, the thing about princes that I just had a realization of
What's that?
is a prince is usually associated with royalty, so I'm going to leave kind of that connotation out of it, but they're the immature version of the king. They're on their path. They're questing to become the king, but they're not quite there yet. Does that have a relevance in the way the cards are read?
Yes, usually the king cards are steadier. Kings have their shit together.
Okay. And the princes
Typically.
are more.
Like you said, they're like on their journey. It's part of the pathway. So.
But there's still the rebellious of youth.
Not always. Okay. Not all the prince cards are that way. But okay. Yeah. Learning. Nightly. Not like nightly learning. I got a dirty mind.
Once a king, always a king, but once a knight,
Grymm, that's not what I meant,
but
but
once a knight isn't enough. My dad used to have that as
oh,
a hat.
I'm gonna hand you this card because you've seen this fella before, but it's the other one that popped out for the group, and I thought you might want to read it.
Oh, thanks. Oh, this is my least favorite card. The Temperance card. Oh boy, and that really drives a point home over our experience over the weekend for me.
What's that?
Going down to your family home, and
Talk to
I
me.
was on the verge this Saturday before we left of allowing my emotions, my fears, my trepidations, my I don't know, my own
Searching for that
I'm
word.
searching for that word, but you know what I'm saying. To
Yeah,
determine the outcome of the day before we ever left.
we were trying to go in with no expectations, but we had trepidation.
We had trepidations. In that, we need to have a little bit of a temperance in what emotions we allow to dominate any given scenario, because really we're pre-tuning the violin to the song.
Oh, right. And had I let my emotions run the show that day, I
Mm-hmm.
would have been like a blubbering mess walking through the door,
Right.
laughing and crying at the same time. I would have.
Before we
Yeah,
walked in the building.
yeah.
So I think it's for me a lesson that I've learned over the weekend is very relevant to this card, and I think it must apply to more than just me. Is temper our emotions, temper our perceptions of how something that we're not looking forward to may manifest.
You mean don't always look at it as the dark and dreary,
Be aware of the dark and dreary, but don't allow the dark and dreary to envelop the energy of that moment,
and therefore become the outcome.
become the outcome.
Right.
Exactly.
Keep your mind open to other possibilities
Yeah.
beyond the dark and dreary. Oh, we need to write that down.
Good luck.
Somebody write that down.
What was it?
Keep your mind open
To other
to
possibilities,
the no past the dark and drearies.
something like that.
I don't remember. Maybe somebody can.
Timestamp 122.
Anyways, contemplate those two cards because they popped right out at us today. I see some folks are writing what their thoughts are, but I can't see the screen.
That was the card that we pulled on Friday. Group card Temperance. With what was the card here? The Prince of
Yes,
Swords.
reversed. Yep.
Christy Reed says being defensive, pushing your perspective without regards to anyone else's feeling. You know,
Ooh.
that is a lesson that I have had to really work hard at in this life, which is pushing my perspective onto other people. And when my perspective is challenged, not becoming defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's such a challenge in my life off and on that even Gussy has to remind me from time to time you're being defensive or you're being pushy. Um, but I don't think I am.
The
So
wolf is
my
showing.
wolf is showing nobody's perspective is right over another's. And I think that's true. I think that is a relative truth, or not a relative truth. That's an absolute truth that can't be dissected. Your perspective is unique to your own
Mm-hmm.
existence. The trick is finding people whose perspectives line up enough with yours that you can build a community around that while allowing yourself the vibrational elasticity to work around those perspectives that we don't jive with. That's been a lesson that has been difficult for me to learn, but I think I'm doing much better than I used to. I know I'm doing much better than I used to, but I've got a long ways to go. So, Christy, thanks for that perspective on what that could mean for us, because for me it does resonate. You just
So,
gave me a reading, Christy. How's that feel?
okay, a little bit of business now. Let's see. If you haven't subscribed to our Purple Door e-zine, we would love it if you would do so. Um, it is a labor of love that we put together every month, and let me tell you, it's not an easy task. But every month we come right into your email as a digital magazine with what I think is incredible. I just love how all of the art comes together with the articles every month, and every month I think I'm not really going to like that one, and then every month it ends up being one of my favorites. So I'm really proud of all the writing that the writers do and the art that the artists provide. And Grymm and I are hoping to see that e-zine grow because it carries information from a witchy standpoint, but not, people that, have this like,
10 degrees of learning in 16 different fields of
no,
witchery.
these are real people who are, applying witchcraft in their daily lives. Not that those other people aren't, but they're people like you and me that also have lives and children and families
Then haven't had the
and
time or the energy.
right. We're not all writing books on witchcraft and that sort of thing. So it's wonderful to share those stories and recipes and remedies and thoughts. And I hope that you jump on board. It's only $4.20 a month. That's like a cup of coffee once.
Not even a good cup,
Not
really,
even a
though.
good cup, right? So, and it will go, if you do that, that money goes toward keeping that e-zine going right now, getting it to where it's, paying for itself. And so that's helpful. I also would like to ask you, and this is something I don't usually do, but Grymm and I have been doing 420-ish tarot, tea and tarot, for a while now. Before that, we were doing what we called the 7-ish live stream. And in both cases, I want you to know we don't have a lot of time to do a lot of other social media, anything. We don't go on TikTok. We don't really do Instagram. We are kept busy with our stuff here. So if there's anybody out there that that might benefit from joining in on 420ish tarot, I know some people might see that name and think that it's just a bunch of people sitting around, getting stoned together, and if that's how they feel, that's how they feel. But
Speaking of which,
I think that there are folks that could benefit, and I'll bet you know a few. So if you have a chance, encourage them to join us because, um, yeah, it's time to reach back out into our community and find those that need some way showing to. A little bit of light.
a little bit of
A
light.
little bit of light.
Mother, Father, Goddess, those energies, entities, deities, vibrations, vibrational frequencies that have been here enhancing the experience of this liminal space and time that we have just shared together, we thank you. We release you to take the energies that we have built here together as a combined coven, gathering of witches, pagans, Christians, Muslims, and all. Take that combined energy of community and unity and distribute it throughout the world for others to feel. Help sway and change the hearts of those that are fearful of things that are different, ways that are not of their own. Thank you all for spending this time with us. Thank you for sharing this time with us, and share it with others that you know that may need to hear the words that we speak. So mote it be.
And so it is. Don't forget, 9 p.m. tonight, Pause for Peace. And on the 28th of this month, Grymm and I do our Purple Door Witch Wave, and that's a wonderful way to gather with folks and experience some meditation and ritual. So hope to see y'all there. If you want to book a reading, www.openthepurpledoor.com. See you there. Stay magical.